Hello, everyone. I'm Alex. I'm a career assistant at the Career Services, and welcome to Careers in Writing and Publishing. I'm just going to have all the panelists introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about their background, what they do, how they got there, and then we'll open it up for questions to you guys. So start thinking about what you might want to ask, and I'll hand it over to John.
Okay, thank you. I'm John Martin, and I'm from the class of 1991 at SJU. Went to SJU, didn't know what I was going to major in, started in biology, then wanted to switch to marketing, went to talk to my parents in the summer and said, I'm going to switch to business. And my father said to me, well, we're paying for your education. You're not going to take business courses. They told me they thought it was more important for me to learn to read and write and communicate first and then learn business later. And at the time, I thought that was horrible advice. But I went back to school and switched. I took a world lit class and fell in love with literature and ended up majoring in English. So I had 3 semesters to major in English. I hadn't taken a single English course up until that point. So it was a lot of paper writing. I learned the Macintosh really well. Back in those days, it was one of the first Macintoshes on the campus, believe it or not. But really fell in love with writing and reading, and graduated. And at that time, it was very much like it is today. The job market was horrendous. I moved to Minneapolis with a friend with enough money to buy 1 month's rent for our apartment. So we took the first jobs we could get, which was a sandwich artist at Subway. And they call publishing the accidental profession, and in many ways, I think it is. And my story could attest to that. One day while making a sandwich for one of my customers, I was offered a job at a publishing company. And I took that as a second job and then took an office products job too, and was working 3 jobs at the time. But really grew to love and do well at the publishing job and really enjoyed it. I was editing, writing, even doing design. I was really into the Macintosh, still am. So I was helping them with desktop layout, which was brand new at the time. From there, I went to a couple other publishers and eventually landed at one I really liked called Capstone Press, a big nonfiction publisher. And so at one point I decided I really would like to try. I've always felt kind of entrepreneurial. I want to try my own thing. And so I jumped off to start Bellwether Media, which is a company I started 6 years ago. And when I studied the market and did my business plan, I learned that 67% of students in grade 3 read below proficient. And when I read that, I thought back to what my dad said. Learn to read and write and communicate first, and then go and do what you really want to do. And so in that business plan, I decided to start a business for reluctant and less able readers, for struggling and reluctant readers. And so Bellwether started with a brand called Blast Off Readers. And Blast Off Readers help kids, early literacy skills are leveled 1 through 5. And they get increasingly difficult from 1 up until 5, which is the most difficult and fluent level. From there, we went to focus on reluctant readers, and we did unexplained books, monsters books, Area 51, stuff like that. One of my favorites, alien abductions. And then just recently launched Pilot, which is for fluent readers, but readers are still reluctant. So. Now, 6 years later, I realized that the advice my dad gave me wasn't so bad. I love publishing. I'm passionate about it. We have a very young and energetic staff. We're a young company focused on the digital and trying to figure out the digital world, but I'm probably over my 5 minutes, so that's my story in a nutshell.
How close do you have to? Okay. My name is Erin Adler, and I am from the class of 2001. And I was an English major here and a secondary ed minor. So that kind of solved the problem of people asking me, what are you going to do with your English major? Because I always had that, and I didn't know if I was going to do it. But I ended up kind of going that path as I had to because I'd taken the time to do it, and I thought I should give it a chance. So I ended up teaching 7th grade for a couple years after I graduated from St. Ben's, 7th grade English. And after that, I worked in a communications job briefly for a year. I decided then that I wanted to go back to school and do something with literacy education. So I did, and I went to the U, and I got a master's degree in curriculum and instruction. And I was always kind of drawn to writing, and I couldn't really get away from it. It was something I always loved. I worked at the Record when I was here at St. Ben's, and worked in media services as my student job. So at that point, while at the U, I kind of went back into the writing world and was an A&E editor at the Minnesota Daily. And then people were kind of probably wondering, what are you doing? Because I was on this education track. So I just knew that I wanted to combine writing and education. And I still am trying to do that and figuring that out even now. But after I graduated from the U, I taught adult ELL for a few years, and then I got my current job, which is as a communications associate at the Minnesota Private College Council, and I've been there almost a year and a half, and I really like it because it is a way to combine writing and education in kind of a higher ed realm. I'm somewhat new to the communications field. I'm still learning that, but so far I really like it. And I do some freelance writing here and there still for the writing piece. My current job is about a third writing, different publications that we have, and a newsletter article every month, a third events planning, and a third kind of miscellaneous things. But so far it seems to kind of have fit me the most out of all of my jobs. I guess I didn't really say why I left 7th grade teaching, but most people kind of assume that the reason that it was challenging. So it was, and I'm happy to have found something that kind of fits me better. So I really like communications so far.
Hi, I'm Maggie. I graduated from St. Ben's in 2005 with a double major in communication and English. After graduation, I did a summer unpaid internship at Grey Wolf Press, which I was introduced to by Cindy Malone and her publishing class. For those of you interested in book publishing, I highly recommend it. They've got some really great, energetic, really cool people working there. So after that ended, I got a job at the St. Cloud Times. I switched to newspapers, and I attribute being able to get that job to my experience at the Record. You make some really great connections there. Kelly Smith works there now, advises there. I shouldn't say works. She writes for it. No, but you make some really great connections there and get introduced to a lot of good situations for real world practice. Also working at a newspaper, I did copy editing there for 3 years. It's a wonderful experience, especially for new college grads. I think my hours were 4 p.m. to 1 a.m., which totally suited me as a night owl. And I got to do a lot of editing and design work and get exposed to some of the most creative people that I've ever met, and it was a wonderful experience. After about 3 years there, I made a switch back to book publishing. I got a job at the University of Minnesota Press. We publish about 120 books a year, just to give you some idea, everything from national interest to regional books to scholarly books. We published Lori Herzl, the Star Tribune books editor's memoir last year, which might be something that interests you guys. As you can see, I'm in marketing. I'm already plugging our books. I work in the direct mail, sort of direct to individual marketing. My duties involve graphic design for our catalogs and brochures. I coordinate mailings that are scholarly and trade and general interest related. I track sales of those, and I also do a lot of things on the electronic side. I'm our blog editor, which is where journalism experience comes in handy. I also oversee our social media accounts, and I update our website, both the content and design of it. I create book trailers or commission them for us and work on e-newsletters and other electronic related marketing stuff for our books. I do some kind of copywriting for back covers sometimes, which is pretty cool. I get to travel like 2 to 4 times a year to conferences where we sell our books, which is pretty awesome. I think since I've been there about 3 years now, and I was involved on a couple really cool, like, bigger projects. You might remember the movie A Single Man, which starred Colin Firth and Julianne Moore. We happened to be Christopher Isherwood's publisher. He wrote that book, and so when that all came out, we had to create a movie tie-in edition, and I advocated to be involved in that design. And even though the extent of my involvement in that ended up being like Tom Ford, the director, totally rejecting my design and saying, like, I'm going to just do this myself, basically. I still kind of consider that a success because I tried something new, and now when I play 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, I can totally say that I'm like 3 degrees away or something like that. So that was like a really cool, amazing thing that happened at the press. I was also involved in our website redesign, which was anywhere between 2 and 20 years in the making. I think our website was more than 20 years old, and so about 2 years ago we started doing a lot of meetings and teleconferences with vendors and stuff like that. And that was a really good experience. I think if you would have asked me when I was your age, would I ever be doing like website design or anything related, there's no way I would have pictured that for myself. But one thing you'll find out is that a lot of things that happen by chance, as he mentioned, and you'll surprise yourself. But I do think that publishing is a really exciting place to be right now. There's revolutions happening with like ebooks and book apps now, and I think, yeah, it's just a really great climate to be in. It's challenging. There are a lot of obstacles, but it's really cool, and I look forward to seeing what you guys kind of questions you guys have about it. So thank you.
Hello. Is that on? Yeah, okay. My name's Kelly Smith, and I'm a reporter at the Star Tribune, and it looks like the record is to blame for a lot of our problems. I came to St. Ben's having no idea what I was going to major in or what I was going to do with my life, as I'm sure a lot of people can feel. And Maggie, actually, I was a communications major because I liked writing, and Maggie suggested being a double major, communication and English. I don't know if you remember that. But the very first day of my first year at St. Ben's, I was looking for something to get involved in, and I'd done sports in high school and decided I was no longer athletic enough for St. Ben's. And I was looking for something to get involved with, and I joined the Record. And I'll never forget my very first assignment. It's going to show you how nerdy I am. But my very first assignment was to write about construction. The route, when you get off 94, the route to get to St. John's, that whatever road that is, was closed for construction. So the link on the very first day of school had to take the back routes, through Collegeville or whatever. And so that was my story, write about construction. I was like, oh, this is so exciting. I'm going to get, on the scene. So I got on the link. And I started interviewing random students. How is this affecting your day-to-day life and the first day of school and everything? And everyone's like, oh, I feel like a first year again, and blah, blah, blah. And I just had this huge adrenaline rush. I loved it, and it was so much fun to be a part of something and to be telling, a really mundane story, but to be communicating that to everyone, and fell in love with it and didn't look back. I was the editor at the Record and interned at 3 newspapers the following 4 years and got my first job at the Forum in Fargo 2 weeks after graduation, and was an education reporter there for 2 years. And then last August I got a job at the Star Tribune, and I've been there a year. So the Record's to blame for all, which if you aren't writing for the Record, not that I'm also the advisor there now, but you should write for the Record. Because even if you don't go into journalism, it's great writing experience. And so for future lawyers or future doctors, you have to be able to write well, and that's a good skill to have.
Okay, I'm Amy Stubblefield. I graduated with an English degree in 2010. And I came to St. Ben's knowing for sure that I was going to be an English major. I just kind of figured I loved writing and I loved reading, and the rest of it would work itself out. So I majored in something I loved. I joined the Record my sophomore year to keep the train going. And I was a variety writer, eventually variety editor and the managing editor. When I graduated, I stayed on the Record the whole time. And I'd have to agree with Kelly, that's something that's really great to do, because not only does it teach you how to write in a different style, but it also helps to build a portfolio, which is helpful. You have these stories that you've written in if you want to go into interview situations. Really, really helpful. But I did a few internships when I was at St. Ben's. I interned at the Hill Museum and Manuscript Library. I was their fundraising and development intern, so I got to do a little bit of marketing. My senior year, I interned at Tiger Oak Publications in Minneapolis, which is a magazine publisher, so they do like Metro Magazine and Minnesota Business. I did that the second half of my senior year. And when I graduated in 2010, I got a job at a market research company, and I was there for about a year, and it was kind of an administrative job. I just took it because it was the first job that had been offered to me, and it wasn't really a good fit. So earlier this year, I wanted to start looking at things that could actually lead into a career that I would love. And I found the internship that I have now. I'm a full-time intern at Padilla Beardsley, and it's a public relations agency in Minneapolis. And so I've been there since the beginning of June. And I work in a few different departments, but just kind of in a nutshell, what I do is try to get media coverage for our clients. So if we have clients that have newsworthy information that they'd like to share with the press, we're kind of the go-between to get their information out there. We're also a pretty big firm, so we do a lot of marketing and creative design. So there's a little bit of crossover between journalism, advertising, and marketing, and that's kind of what I really love about it. So I've been interning there for 4 months or so, and they really hire interns as sort of entry-level positions into the PR industry, which was really great for me because I was an English major. I wasn't a PR major. There are a lot of students who went to like the U and SCSU that were PR majors. And actually, when I interviewed there, my boss that I have now was an English major at St. Olaf, and so he and I had a lot in common, and he, I think, could really see the value of an English degree and the fact that it really helps you learn how to write and be persuasive, and I think that's something that, especially in PR and marketing, is really helpful. So that's where I am now. I love it. It's a great company, and I've been learning a lot. So, yeah, that's sort of my story.
Hi, my name is Pete Mohs. I graduated from St. John's in 2002, also with an English major and with a communication minor. Like some of the people, I knew right away that I was going to be an English major. I actually knew since I was in the 9th grade. But when I was in the 9th grade, I decided I wanted to be an English professor, till I saw what English professors had to put up with. And then I decided that wasn't for me. But then I really, because of the professors that we have here, I really got into editing. I thought, I love writing. I've always loved writing, always loved books. I wanted to get into editing, wanted to get into publishing. Unfortunately, I could not get into Cindy's publishing class, so I had to learn some of that stuff on my own. I work for West Publishing, which is, for some of you that don't know West, West is owned by Thomson Reuters, so for anybody that's done any journalism, they probably recognize the Reuters name. That is our parent company. There's plenty of different divisions. I work in the legal division. West is actually the #1 provider and manufacturer of all legal research and information, definitely in the nation, most likely in the world. So I'm not going to lie to you guys, it's a big company. There's 7,000 people that work on our campus. We have a campus just outside of Eagan, Minnesota, so it's in the southeast corner. And that's just for my part of the company. Thomson Reuters is a global corporation. We have people everywhere. So how many of you have either read Dilbert or have seen the movie Office Space? That's kind of my job. I will fully admit it. But on the flip side of that, a part that most people don't recognize or don't think about is I know people who live in Switzerland and work there that are part of my company. There are people that have worked and lived in London for years. I've worked with our Manila department, or one of our content centers that's in Manila in the Philippines. I train them. They've come here. I mean, we are all over. We're on every major continent except Antarctica, and give us time, we'll probably buy part of it. My role is a legal product specialist, and that makes sense to nobody, even most of the people in my own company, because it's very new. But basically think project management, product management. Any new product that comes in, any new product that's designed, somebody from my team gets pulled in just to help make sure everything stays on track. It's a lot of communication, and it's a lot of writing. It's not the kind of writing that I thought I was ever going to do, but it turns out that it's the kind of writing that I'm really good at. All those communication classes that I had, all those papers that I had to write, you'd be amazed at how often you use that information and how often you cringe at even your directors and your VPs when they send you emails, and you're trying not to correct the grammar in those. Means I was probably well trained. So that's a lot of what I do. If a product comes in, like I said, if it's brand new, if it's a product that we purchased from a different company or even a company that we purchased, I work with those people that come aboard, help with the processes, help kind of define what the product is and what it's going to be doing. And as a side note, I actually also did write for the Record. Although I only wrote for a semester, but I do agree with everybody on this board. You'll count it? Thank you. I do agree with everybody on this panel that any chance you can get, involve yourself in the Record. It's a great, great thing. I think we're ready for questions now.
Just going off that, like, did you feel that a semester on the Record was like worth it and like helped in the future in a sense?
We're supposed to repeat your questions just so it gets on the camera and the recording, just so it doesn't look weird when we start doing it. So the question is, did I feel that, at least from my perspective, did I feel that the semester on the Record was good? Yeah, definitely. It's any chance you can get to have your writing kind of scrutinized by somebody else. I mean, when you hand in a paper to your prof, it's just your prof that's reading it, maybe a couple of people that you had proofread it for you, but this is a little bit bigger. I think it makes you work a little bit harder, pay a little more attention to what you're doing.
You say you work for the legal division?
Yes.
Do you have any legal training, or are there lawyers that work with you, or how did you get into the legal division?
So do I have any legal training? No, I don't. I would say at West about at least 75% of the people do have a law degree. It's a legal research company. It's the leader in the nation, so most people do. How I got into it is I actually used the St. John's Alum Network. I sent out my resume and a cover letter to every single person that went to St. John's that worked at West. And anybody whose address that I could get a hold of. And I heard back from one guy. And he put my name into the system, and he recommended me for the job. And about 2 weeks later, I had an interview, and about a couple weeks after that, I had the job. So key is always work your alum connections.
I should add that's how I actually got my current job as well. I figured out that I wanted to work for Padilla Beardsley because I found it in the Star Tribune Best Places to Work. I did a little bit of research. And went back to the Kane files in career services and found an alum from 2006 who worked there, did an informational interview with her. She ended up referring me, and it's a company that really loves referrals. I think especially right now where jobs are getting harder to get, it's really helpful to have a referral and someone that will sort of go to bat for you, and that's exactly what she did for me. And she was super welcoming to me just because I was a Benny. Didn't know her when I went to school here, but we were both alums at that point, and she was incredibly helpful in my job search. So.
Yep.
Me. I was wondering if I could do two questions just because one is really short. For Maggie Sattler, I heard you first of all mention that a place you've been and recommended to go is Gray Wolf Press. And the short question is, there are a couple different spellings of gray. If I want to Google this later,
They're Gray. Gray Wolf, one word. Mm-hmm. I recommend following them on Twitter, too. They're hugely entertaining. And yeah.
Second question, my big question for you also is kind of off the beaten path of career-related questions, but I'm really curious. You say you work at a publishing institution that publishes several types of documents, including what you call regional books. What exactly is a regional book?
Oh, sure. Sorry. Yeah, there's like a sort of nomenclature that I get really like into that marketing throws out all the time that we all know, but like the general public wouldn't know. So we published, I would say when we say regional books, either they have like something to do with the area, like outdoors, or they're by authors from the region. Anything from like a memoir to photography to a book about like children's books, or we've got a book out of, that involves the children's theater in Minneapolis, and anything that's basically got a regional bent. But we also tend to categorize our more general interest books in a regional way if that author is from the region but has like wider appeal. We've got a memoir by Paul Metza, who was born and raised on the Iron Range, but kind of like traveled around and played with like Bruce Springsteen. So he's got national appeal, so we consider that. We kind of moved that into our national trade book, even though that's technically got regional interest. So yeah, a wide variety of books, in addition to books that are able to be adopted in courses, like everything from literary criticism to sociology, anthropology, that kind of thing.
I'll repeat that again. What advice would you give people who want to break into publishing in the near future? One thing that I would highly recommend is get an internship. I mean, I've hired half of my staff through internships. It's a really good way for you to feel out a company to see if you're a good fit. It's also a good way to see if, well, for me, it's a good way to see if I'm getting good talent. So I use the internships frequently, and a lot of our staff has been developed that way. That's one way. Networking, I think, though, you can't underestimate networking. I don't know what it is, but every St. John's person I've hired has been phenomenal. I guess I can say guy. We haven't hired any Bennies yet, sorry. And so network and internships. Anyone else?
I totally agree with that. I would also say probably be prepared to do like unpaid work initially. If you can fit it in like during a semester at school, and get credit for it, that would be ideal. The summer after I graduated, I did a part-time unpaid internship and then worked part-time as well, with the understanding that this was like a 3-month thing, and this was a time in my life that I'd probably like one of the only times I'd be able to afford something like that. So it can be kind of tough, I think, to break in. But as long as you're willing to do unpaid sort of internship and kind of like experience gathering jobs, you could also try contacting like follow some publishers and find out which ones you really like, that really like energize you and publish, and the kind of stuff that you would be interested in. And why not send an email to someone and just say, hey, I just want you to know, like, I'm interested in you, I'm following you. If anything would come up as far as a job opening or internship opening, I would, be totally interested. And just to get your name out there, it can't hurt.
One other thing that I'd recommend along those lines is keep an open mind. There's a lot of different kinds of publishing out there, and that's one thing that I definitely learned. I never, ever thought I'd have anything to do with the legal aspect or the law. Honestly, never even really wanted to, but it was the only place that was really hiring, and I figured it was publishing. I'll give it a shot. I love it. I really enjoy what I do. Like I said earlier, it's nothing close to what I thought I was going to do or what I wanted to do, but keep an open mind. And along those lines, you never know who you're going to meet. Wherever you end up, that may know somebody else somewhere else. So it's always good networking too.
What's your best advice for someone who wants to score a summer internship?
I don't know if I mentioned this, but after my sophomore year, I had an internship at City Pages, and I only got that internship because I kept calling her over and over and over. And she was so nice and called me at home, and people didn't have cell phones then. That makes me seem really old. But yeah, the managing editor just happened to call me back and said, kind of stopped calling me, but then said, do you want to come in and talk to me about an internship? So I did. So it was just being persistent, I guess.
I would say also there's an amount of preparation that would be really ideal. I think, like, when thinking about publishing, if you can name, like, authors that publisher publishes, that would be key. Maybe read a book or two from them. They might put you on the spot and say, what's your favorite book that we publish? And so you want to be prepared for that kind of stuff. They, probably are most attracted to candidates who really show an invested interest in them, because you could be in a situation where you're applying for a ton of internships at the same time, but as long as you've shown, like, some investment in your part on research as far as that publisher is concerned, that would probably put you ahead.
I'm going to keep stressing networking. In this case, along with what I was saying earlier about keeping an open mind, it's good to be picky as to what you'd like to do for a particular publishing company, but if you can get a job there doing something, anything, you've got your foot in the door. So when the next time comes around and there's an opening or an internship for what you actually wanted to do, they're going to look at you first because you already work for the company. I know we do a lot of that at my company, where if somebody can just get their foot in the door, especially in this economy, they're only doing internal hiring if they do any hiring at all. So keep an open mind.
This is great to just jump off that. Networking and finding connections. You and Amy have both stressed the importance of finding the alumni of CSBSU at the places that you wanted to work. How do you go about finding who there has graduated from this institution?
That one I can answer pretty easily. The question is, how do you find alums? There is actually an alumni page. If you go to, csbsju.edu, up across the top there's an alum section. Just select either St. Ben's or St. John's, and you can search by class, you can search by career. I've done that to find people that I graduated with, just to see what they're up to. But when I did it, I had to actually flip through a hard copy, like pamphlet that they produce and they gave me from the Career Center service. But yeah, just it's all online.
Also, let me just mention now, he said he had to flip through a hard copy. We have the Kane files now. You have to come into Career Services, but you can access it just from our computers, and you can search by, like he said, company or CSBSJU or the location, occupation, anything like that. So if you can stop into Career Services anytime that we're open, and feel free to use our computers to search for alums. So that would be a great opportunity.
Oh, really? Yes. Oh, okay. Well, then I guess stop in and see them. Sorry. Okay.
That's what I did, so it's pretty easy, actually.
Are there any classes or teachers you recommend taking here?
I actually do. So the question was, are there any classes or teachers that we recommend? I will stay away from the teacher side of it. I enjoyed all of my teachers. As for classes, I highly recommend any interpersonal communication class. Any writing classes, any writing that you have to do, it's amazing how much more people will recognize that you can speak and communicate clearly, efficiently, effectively, whether it's going into detail about something or taking a lot of detail and turning into 2 or 3 bullet points, which you have to do a lot in business. Just being able to write that succinctly and clearly, it's amazing how far that will get you. And then with interpersonal comm, just being able to relate to people and communicate properly with people. If I had to say one class that everybody in this room should take, it's some sort of interpersonal comm class. Because you'll get plenty of writing in all your other classes.
I'd stress, too, to take the professors that really challenge you. I think there's a tendency when I went to school to say, who's easy? Which prof should I take? And I tended to do that once in a while, but in English I didn't. I remember one professor I had who was just brutal, but he made me he made me a much better writer. I remember him describing my writing as a bartender who's about to serve a drink, but before he serves a drink, he vomits a little bit. And I was like, well, and he wasn't liking the way I was presenting the information, obviously, but it made me understand it, especially the vomit, not so much, but the St. Joe experience. But no, I thought it was really good, I think, to take the really tough professors. Don't try to take the easy A. Go for someone who's really going to help you. And I'll tell you what, grades don't matter much when you graduate. The experience and the learning you get is everything. I don't think I've ever had anyone ask me what my grade point average was. I always have to tell them. And, so focus on learning as much as you can, not making sure you have a 4.0.
I agree with John. Along those lines, for professors, I'd also say if you find somebody that you kind of connect with, don't be afraid to take other classes of them, because somebody that you connect with, you're going to learn more from, and you're going to learn better.
Is Chris Freeman still here? No. Oh, he was good.
I would say to anyone in the English department, I had nothing but wonderful experiences in the English department. I mean, even if you're not in that major, if you get a chance to take a class. I think when I was there, they had done the study that showed that they all grade very similarly, and which just goes to show how consistently wonderful they are. I think I had a friend in college who actually came here from the East Coast specifically because he'd heard our English department was fantastic. So definitely, if you get the opportunity, take advantage.
I think we all talked about the publishing course as well. I know I took that when I was here, and that it was really a unique class because it gave us exposure to the publishing world in ways that other classes didn't necessarily. It was very hands-on, and that was a great experience.
I have a question just based on, I'm a senior, and I just am taking my first writing course. I'm a communication major, but I'm into introduction of media writing right now, and that's where I'm kind of getting these thoughts of I might want to go into something like that. But being a senior, do you guys have any advice as to what to do with only this much time left? Noticing this might be what I want to do.
I didn't start hanging out with the record until October of my senior year, and I kind of started writing for them, and then suddenly my last semester senior year I was variety editor. So I think it doesn't hurt to just try something even though you feel like it might be too late, because if it's something you really want and you really pursue, you can probably get some really great experience out of it.
I wrote for the record only the second semester of my senior year. So, yep. Other than that, just cram a couple more writing classes in that you can.
And it is all about experience. So, we're up against people that went to the U for, J school and stuff like that, and it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. You're just out there getting experience and blog or start taking unpaid internships or, just getting experience.
Yeah, I think internships, I wish I would have done internships. I think I started to feel like when I was even 24, 25, 26, I'm too old to do an internship, but I don't think that you are ever too, I mean, it's ideally if they're paid, it's better, but you're never too old if you're interested in something to try to find an internship in it, and you know, and if there isn't one there, I mean, sometimes at a smaller company, you can ask, can I create an internship? Can I do some work for you? So, I don't know. I just encourage people to get internship experience.
I'm currently an English and poli-sci double major, and I'm hoping to do a DC internship this summer. If I do an internship for policy or politics, can that still help me get a job in English later if I decide let's do it more?
It'd be harder in journalism, but I'm sure with publishing it's different. But we're objective, so we can't have any political background.
What kind of English job are you thinking? Like,
I have no idea.
just something writing related or publishing?
I guess the only advice I would give is just do something. You don't really know what you really want to do until you start doing something, and it starts to come to you. Just start doing something. It's amazing what you'll find out about yourself. You'll find out what you don't like, and then eventually gravitate to what you do like. To wait and hold out for the management job or hold out for the next, a great job, I wouldn't hesitate. I'd get the job you can get that you think looks halfway interesting, and then figure it out along the way.
Is it something where having a specific English internship is what's important, or is it just having some experience in the working world? I guess that's my question.
I think depending on where you go, it depends. For my company, it's just the fact that you have some sort of work experience, some kind of real life corporate experience, versus necessarily having, for my company, again, a legal background or an English background. I would say, like John was saying, whatever you can get, go for it.
I'll add to that too. I know you mentioned media relations, and that's pretty much what I do. And I would say my English degree and my English experience came in handy almost more than if I would have had media relations experience beforehand, because I can write and I can read and I can write persuasively, and I think if you have that skill, you can really build off of it. I mean, you can teach someone the business side of things, but I know it sounds like I'm like beating a dead horse here, but really if you can write, that can be the basis for any number of careers, whether it's publishing or, like you said, media relations or public affairs or, policy, anything like that. So,
I think Kelly is right, though, that the field that internships matter, and very specific types of internships would be journalism, especially like newspaper. If you want to write for a newspaper, that would be the one where you need internships to get clips, and that would be a very specific path. But all of the other ones, all of the other English-related careers, to me, seem like there's some overlap in skill sets, and people would see that.
Just to add to that, I also think that any internship that you do, whatever you do, and if you decide you want to do something else, there's always something you can take from a previous internship that will make you a more diverse candidate in a future job. Like, there's always something, if you want it badly enough, you can totally say, oh, well, this actually makes me a better candidate. Because I have a diverse background, there's always something that I think you can apply that might be unexpected. And in retrospect, I don't know how many people have said, oh yeah, every single job or career choice I've made has led to this moment on purpose. There's just a lot of bouncing around you might end up doing. But I definitely think, as we've been saying, following what you want to do, don't be afraid of falling out of something else. Although I can't speak specifically to reporting and journalism, but yeah, I would pursue it.
I don't know if this is relevant because you're all English majors, but if you're chasing the money, which you're probably not if you're an English major, I think that's a bad path too. I mean, if you just do what you love and the money will come. Is kind of the philosophy that I think my career has been based on. Is, you know, if you're really good at something, you're passionate about it, and your vocation becomes your vacation. You know, you just every day feels right. Things just work, and you'll make enough money to be able to support yourself, hopefully. It's a great profession to be in, but to go into it looking for the money, I think, is the wrong approach.
Sorry, I'll question space. Getting to something kind of specific regarding internships. Erin, you mentioned working in a place called City Pages, which you would call it over again. Can you tell me more about that place? Where is it? What do they do?
It's just an alternative weekly newspaper in Minneapolis. I also interned as an older intern at the Onion. But I didn't write the satire articles. I wrote for the AV Club, which is like the arts and entertainment part. But yeah, I know. Everyone always does that.
I still think it's really cool.
Thank you.
Going off of that, though, the persistence is key no matter where you're going. I got my job at the Star Tribune because I met a guy, one of the editors, at a jobs fair. And they were just critiquing clips. And I went up to him and I said, you know, I want to get some critique here. And he sat down with me for an hour and we talked. And he said, what do you want? What's your career goal? And I said, to work for your paper. And then
That worked out well.
I know, it did. Then a week later, I followed up with an email, and I said, hey, I still want to work for your paper. And then a month later, I sent him more clips, and I said, I still want to work for your paper. And I kept hounding him, basically. I mean, there's obviously a fine line. When you're in the bushes, you know, stalking the guy, then that's kind of the line, I guess. But I had drew a delicate line of saying, I really want to work for your paper. And it paid off because then a few months later, he called me and said, I have an opening. Are you still interested? And I said, yeah. I think the first thing I said was, are you serious? And I was like, that's not professional. I mean, yes, I do. But persistence is key no matter what job you're getting or where you're looking to work. You know, a lot of these companies, especially in today's economy, they're getting hundreds of applications for one position. If you have the same skill set as person B, you know, what's going to make you set yourself apart from them is if you're persistent, if you have connections, and you don't give up.
In that same sense, is competition something we should be worried about in public relations or in newspapers? I mean, I know you just said persistence is key, but I feel alum that have just recently graduated have tried PR and say that it's a constant competition.
As to how competition is, I think you're always going to have a competition as a worry. That's the best thing to do about it is as easy as it is to say, stop worrying about it. Really, that's what you have to do is just be persistent, keep trying, keep going. The position that I have, I started applying for when it was February of my senior year, and I got hired for it in September. And I kept applying, I kept talking to people. And that's, again, where networking and alum connections that you have, anything that can get you just even a half a step in front of everybody else is going to be worth it.
I would agree with that, too. I know you called out public relations specifically, and I was a little intimidated when I started applying because I know, like Kelly mentioned, you kind of feel like you're, in the journalism sense, you feel like you're competing with you students from the J School, especially applying to jobs in Minneapolis. And it was really my St. Ben's reference that got me the interview. And from the interview, I could kind of let my skills carry me, but it's that initial interview that sometimes you just need the help to land. And literally, I think almost everyone who got hired when I got hired at my company, there were probably 9 summer interns. We literally sat down the first day, and it was like, who referred you? Oh, who referred you? Oh, who referred you? You know, like we all kind of knew someone who was there before we started. And that's not to say it's someone that you know right now, but you can develop those connections, I think. You can go seek out someone. I think alums uniquely from this school are really excited to hear from other Benny alums because it's such a tight-knit community that if you even just email someone and say, oh, you work here, I went to St. Ben's, can we do an informational interview? They'll be super receptive to that because that's just kind of, I feel like the relationship that we've built as an alum network. So
That goes for St. John's as well. I've ran into so many random Johnnies. It doesn't matter what class they are. They could have been the class in 1950 and they found out I was a Johnny. It's like they were my older brother. I am not kidding. That's what it's like. I think we have one of the best, if not probably the best alum network that you can find.
That would be us. We're the alums that are making up the network.
Yes.
But
God,
not that I want to knock the St. John's connection, but if you're in a specific industry, like for journalism, we don't have a journalism program. It's really hard to find. So if you find something that you really want and it doesn't have a Benny or Johnny in it, you can still make connections everywhere you go. For me, it was that jobs fair. I was just asking for a critique, but I made that into a job opportunity, And so everywhere you go, ask for advice and, find people at companies that you want to work for and say, hey, can you check out my work here? Or do you have advice for me? Just asking for advice shows that you're interested in their company, and that's already now a connection you have to bother them another week later, like I did, until you get a job.
I think a key along with that was when you said you followed up. Mm-hmm. And there's so many people that I've heard of that they get advice from somebody and they don't follow up even with a simple thank you email. That goes a long ways.
I was going to say, too, I know specifically in the field of PR, there are a lot of professional organizations like the Public Relations Society of America and the International Association of Business Communicators that have student chapters. So, I know SCSU has a PRSSA, so it's the student chapter of PRSA. And that's something that you should totally look into. I mean, it's not just PR that has those business networking organizations. I know those just because that's what I'm doing right now, but there are a lot of other careers that probably have something similar. So that's something to look into if you want to build connections outside of St. Ben's, St. John's, is just professional networking organizations and partnerships, I guess.
I would agree. I didn't know that you could join different communications professional organizations, even if you weren't in the field yet, but you can. They will take your money and they will let you be a member. So you can always join those. Maybe not as a student, then you might have to join the student part of the organization, but you can join professional organizations even if you're just trying to get into that field. So
I think maybe we'll say if there's one or two more questions maybe, and then we'll close it out. And does anyone have any final questions?
I was just going to ask, I noticed a lot of you were kind of talking about how you kind of stumbled into the position that you're at. Would you say a lot of it, while your training comes from on-job training, or would you say that a lot of it kind of came from skills that you acquired from your, that kind of includes internships and that sort of thing? Did you find that they kind of took you to where you had added to that, or they kind of expected more out of it?
The question was, when you got your job, did you find that a lot of your success came from your education or from on-the-job training, something like that? I would say that, like Peter said, I felt like my foundation that I got at St. John's really helped me to, that foundation of knowledge really helped me to have one step ahead and be able to start learning and excelling in the field of publishing. Without that, I think it would have been a lot harder. But you really are starting over when you get your first job. I mean, you use those as tools, and you need to have those as tools, or you'd struggle. But they're just tools, and you build something once you get there.
I would agree with that. I mean, a lot of what you learn in school, you will totally apply elsewhere. But for me personally, something like InDesign experience was something I got on the job training in, and that's something that. Program, right? Yep. Design. Like Adobe, Photoshop, Illustrator. Those are valuable skills too, and I learned those best. I guess there isn't a class here that has that kind of a thing, but I learned that on the job, and that's been a really key part of my resume. I think that I'd like to continue to build on. So yeah, definitely a combination of the two, I would say.
It was the same thing for me where when I started out, I used to actually build books. not like physically put them together, but from the manuscript coming in, working with the authors, working with the attorney editors on my team and other parts of the team, getting it from just a raw manuscript into down to a manufacturing plant and a printed product. You don't know how to do that. You don't really learn that in college. I mean, that's something that you're expected to learn. That's something they're expecting to teach you. But like everybody else has said so far, the core skills and abilities, ability to communicate and all that kind of stuff, that's what you take away from school. And that's the stuff that makes you stick out. That's the stuff that's going to get you promoted, and it's going to look good on your resume. Those are your building blocks.
All right, guys, thanks. We want to thank all of our alums for coming, and I think most of them will be available. Yeah, go ahead. I think most of them will be available for, I think most of them will be available for any questions that you didn't get a chance to ask afterwards, if you want to speak to them individually. And then I think John wanted to say something.
Yeah. I just wanted to let everyone know I brought a bunch of samples up that I don't want to haul back. So I want you to help yourself to taking. I think I brought enough for everyone. I hope. If I didn't, I have cards here. I'll send you books. But just so you can see what we get, what we do. You might, if you have a nephew or niece and you want to give it to them, that's cool too. Whatever's left, I think we do get books to the education department. So whatever's left, if you could get to the education department, they can use them there.
So thanks for coming, and if you want to speak to them after, and have a good night. And be sure and turn in your evaluation forms at the table in the back. Thank you.